Well, here we are. Welcome to the Flinders Ranges. Trezona campground. Oh, bloody hell. I've never actually set up in the rain before. I've packed up in the rain and it was my least favourite camping experience ever. So let's see how much fun I have setting up in the rain. Well, I've gotten this far. Still raining. I'm trialling these new pegs that I made because I was sick to death of bending tent pegs. That's 12mm rebar. I sharpened the end. I cut some chain links to get that hook shape and welded them on there. And that's, I don't know, 10, 12 inches long. And 300mm, I think. And yeah, they're good. They are the bee's knees. I mean, you get those screw pegs, everybody raves about them. I've never used them. I just made these last week in a bit of a hurry and they were cheaper than the screw pegs, and I kind of like the idea of smacking this with a hammer. I didn't want to bring a cordless drill. Smack it with a little sledgy. You can hit this as hard as you want, you'll never bend it because it's hitting it in line with the spike. And you wouldn't even know. It's so quiet now. The sun's come out, the birds are singing. You can see we picked up a bit of dirt on the way in. The wind has dropped to nothing. Not a breath of wind anymore. And I was just walking in this dry riverbed here. And I can't fathom how much rain must need to fall for this river to fill up. It's like 30 metres wide or more, 50 metres wide. And it must get to, I don't know, 8, 10, 15 metres deep in places. We just had a bit of a shower and it's obviously dried out now. So how much rain needs to fall to wash trees like that downstream? I mean, look at that thing. Anyway, this is Trezona Campground. I'm in Site 10, in case you're wondering. And the sites lower in number, 87654, whatever, some of them come right out almost to where this tree is. The fire pits are over there. Anyway, it's about 6 p.m. I'm going to start making tea. Here we are in a creek bed near the Ediacaran Golden Spike. Apparently this stratified layers of rock here, the layer below this bronze plaque, that layer defines the Ediacaran Golden Spike. The Ediacaran period is somewhere like 550 to 600 million years ago, if I remember it correctly. And in case you're wondering, the plaque is quite small. There's my hand for comparison. The photos make it look much bigger, but I think they're talking about that layer right there. That's the Golden Spike. Everything below that is more than 600 million years old, maybe. And you can see they tested a few places until they found it. So the signboards talking about this Golden Spike talk about the period of Earth's history when the creatures that evolved at that time started producing oxygen and emitting it into Earth's atmosphere, which was, I suppose, the keystone moment for other life to appear, because as we know, most life now breathes oxygen, and the creatures that were alive 600 million years ago is when they were the first ones to start producing oxygen. And I better not say any more because I'm not an expert on this. But yeah, in this creek bed. Wonder how on earth the geologists zoned in on this point in particular. That's Will Peanut Pound. Well, we're back at camp after the day's outings, and as a stark contrast to yesterday night, tonight it's bloody blowing a howling gale. So I'm in gale force precautions, adding more guy ropes in to places to try and stop the tent getting blown away in the night, because it's coming from this way now. At least it kind of goes up and over the tarp instead of trying to lift it off the ground. If this is still standing in the morning, I'll be supremely impressed. This earth, it's not very soft, not very tough. I mean, it's very, very soft. When I was doing my bushwalks this morning, and you can see the erosion everywhere because you're walking around and the earth just gives way underfoot because it's so fragile. So any little trickle of rainwater starts gouging it out, and then you end up with a chasm. There's some serious erosion around the place. Anyway, what I was going to say about the wind is it's going to make cooking dinner miserable. It's like the wind, it's got hands, and it's trying to grab everything that you're working on and throw it on the ground. Yes, I'll leave the pork chop in the fridge. It's just going to be too hard, I think. Well, here we are in the middle of nowhere. I just pulled over to put the rear half of my tail shaft back in because of that. I'm on my way to Beltana, a few kilometres off the main outback highway. If you're heading north, you turn right onto this bit of road, 17-kilometre stretch apparently. And I've already gone through a smaller one of these and nearly got stuck in just front wheel drive. So I thought I'd better stop and put my tail shaft back in. And as I was doing that, a 70 series LC70 ute came through and nearly got stuck. And he went back and forth, and then he got out. And he's churned it up a fair bit. I was going to go through this side, but oh man, I'm starting to wonder if it's worth it, or should I turn around and go back to the blacktop. I did bring my Max Tracks, little ones, but I've only got 2. This could get messy. Well, we made it. For better or worse. I didn't need to take that road that I took, but I did, and now I'm covered in mud. Here we are in lovely Beltana. Nice picnic spots over there. Historic town. I'm going to have a wander. I think I'm going to be having lunch here and then have to shotgun it straight to Lee Creek, get some fuel, and then up to Murray. And I get here, and what do I see on the hillside over there? Starting with B. Brumby. White Brumby on the hillside there.
All the water we're kind of at the moment is provided to us via the Cooper Creek. The two main sources of water here in Lake North, the Cooper Creek and the Warburton. We'll be visiting both of them on our flight today. And the Cooper Creek is all floodwater. That floodwater has very high sediment and dirt content. And while the water has any movement in it, it doesn't allow the sediment to settle at the bottom, creating that dark green colour you can see below you. As we head further west later in the day, you'll notice that the water clarity changes dramatically. And that's because the movement of water is no longer flowing into the lake and severed from the source, meaning the clarity increases. So you'll be able to see that contrast as the day progresses.
I'm in the middle of nowhere again. This is the Udnadada track. I'm only probably about 20 clicks away from Marie. Some of the rocks in this road are pretty big. The corrugations aren't too bad. There's not many corrugations, but just because the gravel is so big, it's very rough to drive on. I just thought I'd stop to let some air out of my tyres because I still had 30 psi and I wanted to pump my rear shocks up again, and then I came around here and I could hear a leak. You can't hear it now because it's all leaked out. So I've had this problem with my rear shocks leaking down over a few days for a long time now, and I could never find where the leak was. Well, I guess I know now because it's suddenly gotten a lot worse. So now I can't keep any air in the rear shocks at all, which is not ideal for these conditions. I might be able to fix it, but not on the side of the road. I think I need to take the rear bumper off to access the fittings. I just can't get my hands in there at the moment. Right, well, here we are on the side of the Udnadada track, parked right next to a giant nest of bull ants. I can't figure out why it's leaking. I've had the O-ring in and out a dozen times. It doesn't look like it's split or cut or anything. It just doesn't seal up when you screw it all together. So in the last ditch effort, I picked some of the butylene rubber, what do you call that? Black snot, I forget the name of that stuff. It's rubber goo that never goes off that I use to seal up the windscreen rubber. I picked a bit of that off and jammed it in around the O-ring on that thing over there, and it actually held. I put it back together and it actually held, and then now I've got the camera and bring it back around and it's leaking again, getting worse and worse. So I guess the butylene rubber's getting pushed out. It's such a pain in the ass. You know, of all the stuff that could have gone wrong in this car, it's the standard Commodore rear shocks that have fucked me up. Bloody typical. That air hose, you know, this kit was for a Commodore, the two shocks and the air hose fittings and whatever, and it was supposed to be for a Commodore, which I'm sure is like 2 feet wider than this thing, but the amount of hose they give you in the packet is like 2 inches too short to even do this car. So I'm friggin' struggling around because all the hoses are too short, trying to put the fittings back together inside the chassis rail, and you can't see what I'm doing because it's dark and awkward. Bloody pain in the ass. I think what I'm going to have to do is get like 10 meters of that hose myself and get some proper brass fittings and things. Commodore shit, I tell you what. Anyway, I'll try my 100-mile-an-hour trick. Well, I'm in a different spot and the car is fixed. After my predicament yesterday, I had to turn my sorry ass around and crawl back to Marie at about no more than 40 kilometers an hour, sometimes down to 25, because I had basically no shock absorbers. The tyres were up inside the guards and it was just bashing the bump stops constantly, scraping and banging the whole time. So I stayed at the Marie Hotel again for one night. I got back in after 7 o'clock and they were very kind in letting me book a night at such short notice. Shout out to the Marie Hotel. Wonderful people they are. And First thing this morning at Sparrow's Fart, I scraped and banged my way back towards Lee Creek. It's not Lee Creek though. I'll put the name of the town up on screen. I've got a mental blank at the moment. Starts with a C. And there's a mechanic there. I rolled in right on opening time and asked if they could possibly help me. And miracle of all miracles, they could. That little T-piece that was leaking, we threw that in the bin, and just miracle of miracles, they happened to have a push fitting T-piece. So hard to describe, but anyway, the Schrade of ours dangling down here now, and there is another T-piece they had, so that means I didn't have to crimp the hoses off or anything, and it's holding pressure now. Look at that gap. No more banging and scraping. Wonderful. So I gave them all a kilo of honey each as appreciation, and I paid them, of course. But yeah, they saved my trip, they saved my week. Otherwise, by now I'd be halfway home scraping and banging my way home. But instead I'm in this beautiful location in the Flinders Ranges National Park. I'm at a place called Bolana Spring. Bolana Spring. And yes, there is a permanent body of water down that way. It's a bit of a brown puddle at the moment. And I staked out a spot hoping to spot some bird life coming in for a drink. Didn't get much luck, really. I did manage to spot a zebra finch, which is good. I've never spotted a finch through my binoculars before. And some tree martin looking things. That was about it. Even the finches, when they come down, as soon as they saw me, they'd scarper again. If you make the slightest noise, it drives everything away. So not much luck with the birding there. But I did manage to spot a yellow-footed rock wallaby as I was walking out just now. So that's great to see them in the wild, because they went on the verge of extinction. And yeah, so it's 4 o'clock. I'm having a cup of tea. Couldn't have gone much better this morning, really, after yesterday's headache and drama. I didn't get to Coward Springs, that's the only downside, but I'm glad to still be out here. Well, here we are at Grendel's hut. What's left of it anyway. And there's a new Grendel hut up the hill there. You can book that as accommodation to stay in if you want. There's also apparently a campground down here somewhere, 200 metres. So I don't actually know much about this place, other than they farmed sheep here some 100 years ago or something. There's the old stone water tank. Pile of rubble. I don't actually know where the old hut should be. I can't see any obvious foundations or anything. It must have been a pretty ramshackle stone building. Watering trough for the livestock. And the old sheep pens. By the way, the flies here are real. I regret not bringing a veil to put around my hat. I've just walked 6.5 k's from the Watootla campground, and it was an okay walk. It was a bit frustrating at times because they send you up dry creek beds, poorly marked or no trail. Walking on big creek stones isn't very nice, but I appreciate there's nothing they can do about that. But I had to do a fair bit of backtracking because the trail just petered out, and I couldn't, I had to go back to the last signpost that I saw, find my way onto the trail again. That happened to me about 3 times. Maybe that's just me. You get here and it's pretty amazing surrounding, but it's so dry. It's not particularly hot today. There's cloud cover, so I'm not roasting in the sun, but it's not that cool either. There's a nice breeze at the moment, but there wasn't the whole way here. Dead still. I just come to places like this and I can't help but think, what were they doing out here 100 years ago? Why here? It must have been a hard life. I read about springs and creeks that were always flowing back then, but I haven't seen a single... Well, actually, I tell a lie, there was... I did hear a tiny trickle of water right back at the start near Wet'utla Campground. But all the other places I've been to that's talked about a permanent spring, not anymore. So I wonder if those people that made a go of it 100 years ago, if they could be transported to this time and see it now, would they still make a go of it? Who knows? Well, I found somewhere to sit down, shake the gravel out of my boots, eat my orange and drink my water, but best not to hang around here too long. I put the orange peel there for 2 minutes. These ants don't miss a trick. Just the sweet drips of orange juice that were stuck to the peel. That was probably like manna from heaven for them. And they weren't going to let it go. I had to shake them all off bit by bit because I had to take my rubbish out with me, of course. Alright, 6 k's back to the car. 6 or 7 anyway. Look where we are. Quite a climb up from the Brindell's hut, and we've got an exploratory digging. They were looking for copper 100 years ago. So they traipsed all the way up here with their picks and shovels and carts and bags and did a bit of digging here because they found some malachite and azurite, the green stuff. But according to this signpost here, it wasn't rich enough to be worth the effort or whatever, so they gave up in 1917. And this is on the Monarch Mine Trail Loop, I think it's called. Man, they made them tough back then, that's for sure. Made it to the top. Apparently this is the site of the Monarch Mine, which was abandoned in 1918, I think. Copper digging, like so many in Flinders Ranges, with unfulfilled promise of wealth. Such optimistic ventures were often undertaken during periods of economic depression. The stone ruin has a sloping slab floor. The green rock fragments at its foot and a rough chute at the top suggest that it was used to sort and bag ore for carrying out on horseback. Wooden bows supported canvas for shade. The mine operated 1906 to 1908. Only 12 tons of ore were treated. Let's try and find that. Or is that it? Wow, they certainly used what they had. Oh yeah, look, there's some green rocks. Unless that's been recreated for modern audiences, but I don't think so. That's awfully old looking. Where were they digging? Oh, here we go. Here's another stacked stone structure. Who knows what that is? There's green stuff in there as well. More green rocks. So there is copper here, but not enough for them to think it was worth the effort if they only operated for 2 years and only exported 12 tons of ore. I don't know how many kilos of copper you get per ton of ore. I don't think it's very much. Anyway, you've got to give them credit for trying. Oh, I made it. I made it. Oh, God. I miscalculated the number of kilometers. I thought it was going to be a 12 and a half round trip. And it was actually more like 15 to 15 and a half. Plus all the backtracking I did. I did not take enough water. Oh, my feet are killing me. I'm so glad I kept the esky water clean. That's the ice melt out of the esky. I didn't put any nasty stuff in it because it's pure drinking water with ice, so that's just saved my life. All the other water I've got in the car is now warm. We're here. And the Grindell's hut is here. So I started here, up to here, I went around there. There's 2 ways you can go. I went around that way, which was a dry lake bed the whole way, really tough going, walking over the roly-poly stones. And then up to there, that was the hut where I stopped. And then I came back this way. And this was the Monarch mine site, the top that I showed you with the green rocks. Now from here to here was 6 kilometers, I think. And I knew from, well, it said the Monarch walk was 6.4, so I thought that was, I didn't look hard enough, really. B5 to B2, that is 6.8 kilometers via Monarch Mine and Wetutla Spring. So B5 to B2 round that way, from here around there to there, that's 6.8. That's, I didn't account for this bit again. B1 to B6, that was 6.4. From B5 to B2 round that way was 6.8. B2 to B1 is 2.4. I didn't account for that 2.4, and my God, I used up all my water by here somewhere. So I did all that. This last 2.4 felt like a bloody eternity. Oh no, my feet are covered in ants. Oh God. The ants are after my sweaty socks. So yes, read the maps properly before you set off, people. That was over 15, probably closer to 16 kilometers. Wow, that was 5 hours. I think I didn't do too badly, really, considering. Anyway, enough rabbiting.